Welcome to our SBJ Executive Insight. I'm Madkour. While the esports community has seen incredible growth over the last few years, there is a history of competitors dating back decades. What was once thought of a leisure activity, there are now high-level professionals that show their skills all over the world for big events and for big dollars. But behind those major tournaments is an infrastructure of technology that is built to last. And one of those companies that are being relied on in the esports space is the Neutrik Group. And joining us today is Senior Customer Solutions Engineer, Mark Boyadjian. Mark has been with the company, I believe, for 22 years.
That's correct, Abe, yes.
And it's really good to have you with us here in our studio in Charlotte.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
And for those who aren't familiar with the Neutrik Group, describe to us like what the platform of the company is and really what you do.
Absolutely. So you can think of Neutrik as that company that plays a very small role of otherwise large industries. We're that company who's everywhere, you just don't realize we're there. So we play a connectivity solutions role. So whether that's going to be the interview that we're having now and the cameras and microphones that are being used to do this and the lighting that's being used to illuminate us, all of those have a Neutrik connector in them. So you don't necessarily know we're there, but again, we're kind of that glue that binds together all of these various technologies.
So when I go, for instance, to a number of large events, you're involved in some capacity.
Absolutely, that's correct. So you'll find us anywhere from the experience that the guest is having or that the fan is having, right? Whether they're seeing something projected on the stage itself or whether they're hearing the sound coming out from the stage through the speaker systems, maybe even at the point of sale where they might be making a purchase for beverages and snacks and what have you at the event. All of that technology, if you will, all of that has to be connected somehow. And so Neutrik allows us to be able to, we create effectively ruggedized solutions for connectors that allow them to be used in these kinds of live events.
And so how long has esports been on the radar and part of your business?
Wow. Well, on the radar, over 5 years now, easily over 5 years. In terms of what Neutrik is trying to do to make sure that we can help out with the connectivity that's required for that industry, it's been about 3 years now.
And Mark, you spoke about these connectors that Neutrik Group provides. Like, what makes these connectors suited to esports, and like, how are you any different at all?
Absolutely. So, in some cases, Neutrik may innovate and create a new product altogether to meet a specific need. In other cases, we can take existing connectors. Let me use an example, if I may. The HDMI connector, right? We're probably all very familiar with that. We see it on the back of our televisions, coming out of our consoles, certainly on the backs of our video cards, right? Whether that's on your laptop or an add-in card inside your computer system for gaming purposes. And so that particular connector isn't very ruggedized, right? We know that there's some fragileness to that. It doesn't lock in any way. It doesn't have any kind of weather resistance or anything like that. And so what Neutrik will do is we'll take that connector, and we can't necessarily make the connector better, but what we can do is we can surround it and ruggedize it. So now it's locking, for example, so it won't just pull out at the worst possible moment. Or we'll make sure that the appropriate bandwidth is there so that that connector is performing at its absolute best. Especially, it's one thing when we're watching something at home, right? Or our viewers that might be watching this over their computer. Latency probably isn't as big of an issue for them. But when we're talking about milliseconds, the difference between making the big purse of $1 million at an esports event or a gaming event and coming home with nothing, that can be done measured in milliseconds, and it makes a huge difference in the overall performance. That's where Neutrik shines. That's where we can help out, making sure that those connectivity solutions have the lowest possible latency with the highest possible ruggedness and quality.
So Mark, as we look at the industry, we follow esports at SBJ quite closely. Yes. Like, how would a esports company, an esports provider, an esports team, big esports event, how would they look at you as a solutions provider?
That's a great question. So to be clear, Neutrik is not the final authority on esports. However, we definitely are the authority when it comes to connectivity solutions, right? So, and sometimes we get caught up in the average system. Someone might say to themselves, well, we're going to do a new esports venue for our classroom. So we're going to start a program for our school or maybe for our university. And we don't really know where to get started. We think the first thing we have to do is worry about purchasing things like the computers and the display devices and what video card are we going to get. And all those things are very important, to be sure. But there's other considerations. The infrastructure itself. What wire will you need? Where will that go? What about the HVAC, right? What am I going to have to get around? Do I have to go through walls? All these other things that are really a core part of setting up any of these spaces, and typically doesn't get answered until maybe step 2 or 3. So where Neutrik can help out is giving you the opportunity to be able to speak with us and be able to learn from us what is the appropriate order of operations, right? Let's look at the space. Let's look at what your funding is. Let's look at what kind of concerns you have for equipment or security. What are you going to do after everything's installed? Well, now you have to worry about things like day 2, right? Who's going to support that? All of these various aspects of any esports program, whether it be some folding tables and some stackable chairs and a couple of computers on a Wednesday after school, or something as large as a 1,000-seat arena, right, or larger, to be able to handle these incredible international and national level competitions.
So the scale can vary, like you said, in terms of like, could be a smaller operation or it could be a full-size venue.
Absolutely, and again, that's where Neutrik's experience shines. We don't necessarily supply all of those different products. We're the company that's going to fit you between product A and product B and make sure that all of that interconnectivity is there in a reliable way. But it is important for us to understand what that customer is trying to achieve first. And that's why we always welcome people to reach out and call us. In fact, we've actually started a website specifically dedicated to esports and gaming so that people have the opportunity to reach out to us, learn a little bit on the website. And if they wanted to dig a little bit deeper, they're more than welcome to reach out and contact us so that we can get right into their specific details for their particular project.
So Mark, as we wrap up here, like where do you see the industry, whether it's likely gaming, going? Sure. And where does Neutrik Group play a role in that in the future? Where do you see all of this heading as we sit here in the first quarter of 2023?
Yeah, well, I will say this. There's no doubt that if you don't know what esports and gaming is and you haven't had a chance to watch a tournament or anything like that online or in person, understand that gaming and esports is not a subculture. This is not something that is just lone person in their basement playing games until 2 a.m., although that could probably happen too. The reality is this is an organized, very incredibly growing in popularity event, right? We're talking about something that will surpass the NFL in terms of overall viewership. And there's no doubt that the number of gamers is growing in the millions every year, right? Neutrik is there each and every step of the way to make sure that as that scales, as that gets larger, Abe, we have the products that will be able to meet and exceed the requirements for any of those events.
Mark Boyadjian from Neutrik Group, thanks for joining us today on SBJ's Executive Insights. I'm Abe Madkour. Again, we appreciate you joining our SBJ Executive Insight with Neutrik Group Senior Customer Solutions Engineer, Mark Boyadjian.